You have mail.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Old but he's current.
We're old, he's current.
You just wonder how that works.
I'm just saying this is from country music that I chose. Is that okay?
That's cool with me.
Yeah, okay. I'm Kae Thompson, everyone. This is Kae Thompson Live.
And I'm Eric Payne. Welcome to the Kae Thompson Live Show.
Right.
Here at the GoPro Radio Network. Yes. And we wanted to just mention out at the top of the show. That's pretty cool music, man.
I know.
Did you say but he's current? He's old, but he's current?
No, he's not really old.
All right. We want people to know that today's show is being sponsored by
You have mail.
Bonda's Kitchen, 183 West Street, North New Jersey. Bonda's Kitchen gives serves up some really good country and soul food, healthy soul food. It is good and healthy. You can taste the health going in. when you have some string beans, garlic string beans and stuff, you can just taste the health and the greens and the healthiness going there. It tastes good too. Also, we're also sponsored by Rubens, really Bogey's Nightclub and Lounge in East Orange, New Jersey. East Orange, New Jersey. It's at 527 William Street, East Orange, New Jersey.
Just reopened.
Just reopened not too long ago. Anybody that's been over is the East Orange, York, Maplewood, South Orange area over there in Essex County.
Right.
They had hung out in Bogey's. They know they had some good times in Bogey's, and Lottie's is also a restaurant within there. So we want to encourage everybody to get out and see those places. If you don't like we do, that's the good food.
Yeah.
Lottie's shows. Right.
Hi, Ophelia, how are you? We're fine. We're fine. We're just going around here, so we think about the food. Because these restaurants in New Jersey are really, really something, But listen, I'm going to tell people that we're talking to you because of the fact that we're dying to talk to you about dancing, about health, about food, and about your career, and your husband's career. You're in the military, and the reason you were a sergeant in the military, right? And a whole lot of other stuff, which I'm going to get to. So wait a minute. She's also a poet. She's also a writer.
Okay.
Okay, and she was in the service. And her husband is Lieutenant Colonel Edgar Thompson. So they were both in the service, and they were also. I think the President of the United States went to Toledo, Ohio. Is that correct, Ophelia? When you went up on the plane.
You went up on the plane.
We were on Air Force One.
Air Force One.
Air Force One.
With Barack Obama?
Absolutely.
With Barack Obama. You go ahead, Cousin Ophelia. Wow. Glad that other guy wasn't on there. His predecessor.
Romney.
Bush.
It was a
Romney
memorable
was
experience.
Right.
Once in a lifetime.
Well, once we talked to you about dancing and how you got into dance, how you reinvented yourself and came up with a new career, I mean, 2 careers really, we're also going to be talking about the main topic tonight, and that is the assassination of John F. Kennedy.
Because it's the 50th year anniversary of the assassination of President Kennedy. This 22nd of November, which is going to be on a Saturday, marks 50 years since the assassination of President Kennedy, and we wanted to
We're going to be
talk
talking about that.
Mhm.
In fact, I promised everybody I was going to be talking about it
Right.
because I was watching television that day.
Mhm.
And Ophelia, what were you doing that day, by the way?
I was in a math class in high school. It was my
Mhm.
junior year in high school.
Uh-huh.
I never shall forget it. The principal came on the PA system, and the whole school just stopped.
Son.
They turned the radio on, broadcast throughout the entire school, and we were all in a state of shock.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. As was the
Yeah.
entire country. And but anyway, I want to get back to that. But I want to lead people into this area that you're involved with, which is now health. You are doing some absolutely fantastic stuff. You know, you're dancing these days. Tell us about this. I love it.
Absolutely. We step
By the way,
into
did you like
dance
that music?
Every Wednesday.
By the way, did
2
you like
to
that
4
music?
p.m.
From
at
2
the
to 4.
Grace Presbyterian Church in Toledo, Ohio.
Wow. So that's where you are right
and
now.
our theme is "Come Dance with Us."
Uh-huh. Now,
And over 100 students have rotated through our class over the past 2 years.
Mhm.
We reach out to seniors, to handicapped people. We reach out to students during the summer, and we don't charge a fee.
Mhm.
So what we try to make available for people who in the Toledo area who can't afford the paid classes
Mhm. Mhm.
to come on join us over at the church, and we are in the middle of the day so that seniors will feel comfortable, that they'll be home
Mhm.
before dark.
Mhm.
And we have, and although we are right in the heart of Central City, we are a drug-free, alcohol-free, safe environment.
Oh, that's great.
Wow.
So,
That is fantastic.
Now, this is about your third career, right, Ophelia? I mean, you were a teacher, an educator, you're a poet, you're a writer,
yeah,
a
30
motivational
years
speaker.
in public education.
And the military, you were how
absolutely.
long
And then I
in?
was publishing poetry. I
Yeah.
started to write poetry. I say to people that, poetry was very therapeutic. It kept me out of the penitentiary. Otherwise, I probably would have killed somebody if I hadn't been able to write poetry.
You needed a way to get it out there,
So
huh?
poetry was a beautiful journey. And now I'm dancing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's I've heard you use the term reinventing me.
That's right.
It's
That's right.
somewhere between the age of 66 and 73. When you start over that late in life, it's a beautiful, beautiful journey.
I
That's-
maintain
that's-
that you should do what you want to do, as long as you want to do it.
Now,
And,
No, I was going to say this dancing. Now, this is a kind of a course or a course that you teach primarily for seniors to kind of get some exercise. Is that the gist of it?
Well, basically we focus on exercise and spiritual growth. We
Mhm.
cater to seniors, but and to young people too during the summer
I
time.
see.
When kids don't have anything to do. We've had 3 generations in one family in our dance
Wow.
class
Wow.
at one time. The grandmother, her daughter, and her grandchildren
Mhm.
Mhm.
were all there. But we basically cater to seniors, early in the day, because they're not going to go out at night.
Mhm.
Right.
And they may not want to go to the clubs.
Yeah.
For the most part, they're not going to the clubs. But we said we're not going to dance with the stars, but we're going to have a good time in the afternoon every Wednesday.
That's right.
We have
Now-
a ball.
Now, Ophelia,
We have a lady that comes in with a walker, and she's comfortable to
Wow.
be on the dance floor with her walker, do what she can, and
That's
then
right.
sit, and rest. And we focus on.
But I
health.
understand that you're dealing with 3 different styles of dances. There's the Chicago style, the Toledo style, and the Detroit style. Tell us about this. Because
Well,
we call it line
We
dancing
do
here.
Chicago style stepping,
Ooh.
Detroit urban style ballrooming, and just a little bit of the latest hustles and line dances.
The line dances. That's what we know them as. Yeah. And I
But
understand.
we really don't focus on the line dances as much as now we dance to gospel music as well as to R&B and love songs.
Mhm,
But
now-
our main focus really is Detroit urban style ballroom, which is a 4 count. And a little bit more difficult is the Chicago style stepping, which is 6 beats and an 8 count.
Mhm.
You're getting technical right
But
there.
those
That's
two are
more
our
than just
major focus.
that's more than just getting out on the floor dancing. Now that's a little you're getting a little bit beyond me. I feel you. with the counts and the that's a little bit.
Well, basically, I stick to the basics because there are people in the area, up in Detroit, over in Chicago, and they come over to Toledo to run workshops
I see.
for intermediate and advanced students. But we stick to the basics so that when people leave, the class, and if they want to go on to something just a little bit, take it to a different level, there are people who are around. But if they, get a little bit insecure and want to come back to the basics, we do have people who are double back. They'll come back because it's hard to get away from the basics. If you really want a good foundation, you're going to have to nail the basics down. And we get a good workout in the process.
Do you know, I've seen the videos, from some of the dancing done at the different places around the country. And it seems that the southern states and the Midwestern states are doing more of this kind of dancing than we are. Because you're involved with the churches, which the organizations, et cetera, et cetera. Now, it's not to say that it's not here, because it is. Positive Community Magazine does a lot of that also, downtown Newark.
A lot of
the dancing. Yeah. And a lot of people are involved in it. In other words, group dancing, organizations are dancing. They're just not sitting there not moving. And, now it's being, directed towards seniors.
Right.
Right. So.
So, Ophelia, I get the feeling that this particular, it's pretty big out there in Chicago and Detroit. The line dancing and the step dancing. Is there a kind of a whole culture or of dancing events and a culture built around that?
Yes, absolutely. And people travel to different parts of the country. Down in Atlanta, they have something every February called the Heritage Ball. And then over in September in Chicago, they have the world's largest dance contest, stepping contest.
Wow.
And then people from Milwaukee, down in Miami, out in Los Angeles. These people travel all over Cleveland. There's a big dance here this weekend, and there'll be people represented from 36 states.
Wow.
I understand.
Wow.
But I know with the events that and the venues that I get to participate, I look forward to seeing some of the great dancers out of Chicago, out of Atlanta, out of Detroit, over in Milwaukee, even in the Carolinas.
Yeah,
They
South Carolina.
jump in, and it's like a community. And there's a guy up in Detroit, Jeff Clark, that keeps an ongoing calendar of everything that's happening when people report to him, and online he keeps a record of where people are traveling, to Las Vegas,
a newsletter,
and different places.
That's
You're right, and they have contests where they offer prizes of thousands of dollars to great dancers, and then they publish on YouTube the winners.
Right.
And it's quite exciting, and it's not the younger generation. It's older. It's people, I would say, 35 and up.
Right. That are trying to keep that.
There'll be some dancers there in their 70s, a few in the 80s, but it's not unusual to see 60 and 70-year-olds.
Right. I had heard about.
And I'm not saying old people. You understand?
Mature people, experienced.
Why?
Yes.
And
it's most enjoyable because it's smooth dancing.
Right.
It's not. The young people have all that energy where they can put all of this into it. We're a little bit
They can
beyond
get down.
that, but it's smooth dancing. There's something called Greystone, and one they are coming up with now called the Walk. And a lot of it goes back to the bop and some of the dances from the 20s, 30s, and 40s have just been updated.
I love this idea.
They put a little, took some of all of the activity out of it, just enough to get us good exercises,
Right.
but not to wear us out.
Now you also get seniors coming out in wheelchairs. Is that it?
On a walker. I haven't seen with the wheelchair yet, but I have seen people on walkers. Yeah.
Yeah, because getting back to that, because I had heard about the stepping dancing and all those competitions, and for the past
didn't that come
about
from
the
the
past 10
sororities and
years
the
or whatever.
fraternities?
Well, that's a little bit of a different type of stepping.
Yeah.
But this particular form of dance, for about the past 10, 12 years, I've been hearing about it. That it was like you said, it's a whole community, a culture, a subculture that's into
and it's
this.
growing.
Yeah.
But it's not something that we're as familiar that I've coming up at my age, around my 50s, we weren't as familiar with that. We were kind of here on the East Coast. We're into the disco and then the house music and hip hop and things like that. So we really didn't get into that kind of a formal style of dancing that hails back to that time period. We got to go for a break in a minute, but I just found it kind of really interesting, and the fact that you said the historical where the dances date back from.
Yeah.
Do you remember anything like that in this area, in the northeastern?
In the line dancing.
The line
Sure,
dancing,
it's very popular.
Similar.
I was talking about Positive Community Magazine and some of the churches. They will get people together and
right,
to
but
move.
when you were coming up back in the day.
Oh, wait a minute.
Guys,
what do you mean back in the day?
I'm talking about when you guys used to go out dancing and things like that. Do you remember?
Well, we did. We did a lot of Latin dancing, and we were, dancing,
okay.
and so forth and
right.
so on.
Because
Ballroom dancing.
I'm saying that because it seems to be a regional thing. You don't seem to be as familiar with it because it's a Midwestern thing. So
well, the stepping, with
Okay.
my sorority,
right.
And
And
let's
also in the D.C. area, they had something called hand dance.
right, Ophelia, just hold that thought. Hold that thought. We got to go to a break real quick. We'll be right back after this. We're going to continue this on the other side. We'll be right back.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a great opportunity. If you have a product or a service, a talent or something important to say, now's your chance to have your very own radio show. Whether you're just starting out, a veteran looking for a professional platform to enhance your presentation, the GoPro Radio Network is the premier place to cultivate and share new and exciting content. We'll help you to grow your audience and keep it growing long after your first broadcast. Now you have a voice. Call 212-696-8562 today or visit www.goproradio.com and you'll be amazed at how easy and affordable it is to have your very own show on the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
If I listen to the voices in my head, somebody may take me away there, Ayana. Do you know that?
Back on the Kae Thompson live show.
Yeah, we're talking to Ophelia Thompson out there in Toledo, Ohio. Right, Ophelia?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And we're talking.
I wanted to mention because of some of the difficulties I experienced in getting started in the dance and then starting my own class to try to help people before they run into some of the problems that I had run into. I'm publishing a book. It's my third book publication, but it will be my first book on the dance, entitled Step Into the Dance. And it's my personal journey into the world of dancing, and I've included some essays, articles, lesson plans, worksheets, mandalas, original poems that will express a lot of my frustrations and joys in learning how to dance when you start out a little later in life. And I'll be covering freestyle, solo dancing, as well as same-gender dancing without any implications of homosexuality. And there will be plenty of musical worksheets with rhythmic patterns that will help people who know how to read music. And I think this little book, it's probably more of a booklet. So far, it's around 30 pages. It's been proofread, and I have to go back and make the corrections. But I think it's going to be very helpful to put into the hands of the people who are interested, because one of the big problems I had was once I got home and it's time to practice, I couldn't remember or recall what we did in class. And then when I came up with a way to notate it, like taking notes when you're in school, when you get home and go over your notes, it became easier. So, for me, it's important to get this down.
And it's
get
important.
it published and get it into the hands of my students.
And it's important, Ophelia. It's important to tell people that you are an established writer and you're an established poet. And your poetry, you've been on the air with us before, and it's absolutely beautiful. I mean, she's an award-winning poet and writer, educator.
Right.
Yeah.
So this falls right.
As a matter of fact, I have a poem that I think you might like. I'm going to read a little bit of it for you. It's entitled "Rag Doll Dancing." Dancing, prancing, life-enhancing, intimate moves can be romancing, smooth execution, floating along, precise motions, some weak, some strong. When the male partner knows how to lead rather than his ego to ravenously feed, when he considers the feminine side and gently allows her to float and glide, dancing can be a beautiful thing, prancing that allows the heart to sing. It can be also an ugly fight if the man usurps with all his might. It's sad if a man doesn't have a clue that eloquent dancing requires two, and the woman has a gentle part in the equation when he jerks and pulls with hard persuasion. But when the two are as smooth as oriental silk, gliding and floating like chocolate milk,
Oh my goodness.
fancy prancing, heavenly
Love that.
romancing, the music is perfect while the couple is dancing.
Wow.
Heaven and earth. What a meditation.
Ophelia, that's beautiful. I
Gliding-
love it.
Gliding in a cosmic sensation.
Yeah.
And it goes on
Yeah.
and on.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And down at the end it says, but if you feel like a rag doll being tossed around, up and down, no smile but a frown, like a rag doll found in the sand, somewhere on a dancing stand. Oh my goodness. And I'll skip down to the last verse. If a rag doll you don't want to be, from aggressive male dancers, you will have to flee. Keep your eyes open, stay in the groove, and watch for the ones who dance real smooth.
All right. Okay. You know, we have 10 minutes to break, but I'm telling you right now, Ophelia, but what we're going to be doing, I want to tell people that we are still going to be talking about, you know, the assassination of John F. Kennedy, because this is a remembrance year. It's you know, that was
50th anniversary.
yeah, 50th anniversary. But I mean, I had to get this in with the dancing because I understand that you're going to be doing something, maybe coming to New Jersey. Is that possible? You coming to New Jersey anytime
you
soon?
mean- Oh, that sounds exciting. I'm going to be heading down to Georgia pretty soon. I have a 99-year-old mom down there under the care of hospice, and yet she's doing very well.
That's good.
So I'm going to get on the road headed in that direction before I think about coming towards New Jersey. But anything is possible.
Okay, okay.
And as we're wrapping up, how did you get into the dance? Is that because you were trying to find a way to stay fit and stay active as you advanced?
You know, not really. I was reluctant because I didn't learn to dance as a youngster.
Right.
You know, I knew how to dance with the doorknob and jump around on the floor to the beat, you know, as a kid. But learning how to dance as a youngster was something that I didn't have an opportunity to do. And a friend said they were taking dance lessons, and I said, well, I guess I'll come and see what you all doing. And I was hooked. Oh,
It
man,
happens that
I
way.
should have been doing this for a long time.
Right.
It was absolutely delightful and yet challenging and frustrating because, like I said, when I get home, I couldn't remember. I would revert back to what I knew, jumping around to the beat, you know, to be disciplined,
Right.
And learn. I find it very rewarding and as well as not only the health benefits and exercise, but to just enjoy the camaraderie. I've made so many friends and met so many new different people from all walks of life. So it's turned out to be a wonderful journey for
Now,
me.
what about the captain?
Kind of
Has
hard to
he?
get my husband, drag him along.
I was
He
just
comes
getting ready
along,
to mention
you know,
him. Is
pulling
he?
and kicking a little bit, but he comes along.
Is he involved in dancing also?
Pardon?
Is he involved in dancing also? Is he trying?
Yeah, it shocked me. He comes. He's one of the students in my dance class and is doing very
I love
well.
it. I love it. Okay. All right. Listen, we're going to be going for a break in just about a few minutes, but I want also to go into the assassination of J.F. Kennedy now. Now, you were saying that you were in class.
Yes.
What are people feeling, or what did people feel during that time? I know you were young at that time. I remember my experience was that I was watching television. I was glued to the television. It was such a shocking experience. So what are your feelings during that time? Do you remember?
Well, as I think back on it, in the modern classroom where there are televisions and computers and all this good stuff, back in '63, we didn't have all of that, especially in the South where I'm from, in Georgia.
Yeah.
We didn't have any of the, modern technology, but the principal was able to patch in the radio announcement so that the whole school, we had never experienced anything like that before. They only come on for announcements in the morning and the evening.
Yeah.
If they break in the middle of the day, we knew it was some kind of emergency.
Yeah.
But just when he announced it, it was like the whole school was in shock at one time. It was unbelievable. And he played it, and you couldn't hear. There was no other activity. Everything just stopped in the whole school, and we were all focused on the radio, not the television, because there weren't any, available then. But we were all focused on the radio, listening, because we couldn't believe this could not be happening.
Yeah.
Right.
And and it was just unbelievable. And I think because for our generation, having at any point experienced anything like that, we were lost. We felt lost.
Well, we have a caller that I think wants to get in on this particular discussion. Go on, caller. Hello?
Hello.
Oh, okay. This is former Assemblyman Bill Payne. We hold on for a minute. We're just beginning our discussion about the 50th anniversary of JFK. We're talking to Ophelia Thompson out of Ohio. And Ophelia, going forward at that time, how would you say that it affected your life, living through this period in our country of the assassination of a modern-day president? I mean, because you served in the military and things like that. How did it inform your decisions later on to be made in life as you grew into an adult?
Good question. Ophelia, are you there?
Yes. At that particular time, you have to remember we were right in the middle of the civil rights movement in Georgia. Well, in the South in general, but in '63, at that particular moment in time, many of our people were not allowed to vote. We weren't old enough yet, to vote, but we were getting ready to integrate. The schools weren't even integrated at that time, at that point in time, because my senior class integrated, and Kennedy was represented a hope for us for change in the future, and it was like hope was dead. It was we were moving forward, in the civil rights movement, but the death of Kennedy was. It was almost like, oh my God.
I'm going to, in a moment, it's going to have to go off.
Hold on, Assemblyman Payne. We just wanted to bring you into that discussion because, Ophelia, you were in Georgia, correct, at this time, and Assemblyman Payne, you were in New Jersey. Hello, Assemblyman Payne.
You're on the air.
Hello.
So you were in.
Hello?
We're just hold on.
Yes, I was in Georgia.
You were in Georgia, Ophelia, and Assemblyman Payne, as we can hear you while you're on your conversation. So while you're on the line, now you were in New Jersey during when JFK was assassinated. What was the situation there during your life, and what do you remember on that day?
Well, actually, when John F. Kennedy was assassinated, it was actually at the height of his popularity. He was a young, vibrant president. He was a new frontiersman, as a matter of fact. People were excited about the fact that John F. Kennedy came into office, and he talked about this new frontier, and he talked about the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans, born of the century, tempered by war, and disciplined by hard and bitter peace. I mention that because in that year, 1962, I think it was, I was running for councilman in the city of Newark, and I was impressed, as a lot of other people were impressed, with this new young president, and I subscribed to much of what he was saying. So we were excited about the torch being passed, and so I would often quote some of the speeches that he made also, and when he was killed on November 22nd, 63, I remember exactly where I was. I was driving back from lunch to my office at the Newark Housing Authority, and I was pulling into the driveway to go to my office when I heard over the radio that he had been assassinated, which was obviously a great shock to everybody. I still remember exactly where I was. But and I had some other connections with the Kennedy White House. A good friend of mine, Andy Hatcher, was the African American, the first African American associate press secretary for the White House in its history. And Andy was a friend of mine. He was working. Pierre Salinger at that time was the press secretary, and Andy was the first African American in that position. So that we had a kind of close relationship with Andy and those in the White House at the time. But
Yeah,
quite a shock.
we are going to have to go for a break right now. I want to thank you, Ophelia, for being on and being on the show and lending your expertise about dancing and also talking about the assassination, your memories of it. And Bill Payne, if you'll stay on the line, we will be right back. Stay with us, everyone. Kae Thompson Live.
GoPro Radio, the fastest growing network in the galaxy, is leaner and meaner with a new attitude, new technology, and a brand new lineup. Tune in and get wired every Wednesday, starting at 5 p.m. Eastern with the BCS Experience featuring Byron C. Saunders, formerly of New York City's WBAI. Then at 6 p.m., it's the Black Agenda TV Express featuring sought-out political commentator Glenn Ford, formerly of America's Black Forum. Then at 8 p.m., it's time for Kae Thompson Live with the legendary radio host Kae Thompson of Inner City Broadcasting's WLIB and her son, renowned actor Eric Payne, who starred in such films as Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, Drop Squad, and many more. Then at 9 p.m., it's Food Rap featuring Nina Markel, a.k.a. the unofficial mayor of Jersey City, and former Viacom marketing guru Shauna Glover. Last but not least, at 10 p.m.
You have mail.
It's the Sexy Party Show with the bad boy of dating, Mr. Locario of I Love New York fame, and his partner in crime, Miles Cunningham. So get wired every Wednesday from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern only on the GoPro Radio Network, www.goproradio.com. Listen to the voices in your head.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ma. I was going to intro you to tell your experience. We're back on the GoPro Radio Network. Kae Thompson Live here. I'm Eric Payne. My mom is Kae Thompson. That's the other person that you hear on the mic. And we want to let you know that this show is sponsored by two fabulous places. Vonda's Kitchen.
Get hungry again.
Vonda's Kitchen at 183 West Kenny Street, Newark, New Jersey.
Yes.
Comfort, soul food for your mouth and stuff and your stomach.
Getting hungry,
it's really a good place. You could get healthy soul food, not so healthy soul food, but always good food.
Well, she's got a line of
and
good
also,
vegetables.
that's right.
Fantastic.
Also, we're being sponsored by Bogies Nightclub
Party time.
and Lounge in East Orange, New Jersey.
Yep.
Everybody that's from that area, y'all know what I'm talking about when I say Bogies Nightclub and Lounge. Back open for about the last year or so, remodeled, better than ever. You can check out Lottie's restaurant in there. They have good food, too. We're talking about 527 William Street in East Orange, New Jersey. Check both of those places out. So now we're discussing, we said this is the 50th, this week marks the 50th anniversary of the assassination of President John F. Kennedy on the November 22nd, 1963. And we have a unique opportunity, some years ago, unique opportunity to have African Americans who've been alive, or people who've been alive during that time. My mother and my father, our relative Ophelia out in Ohio. I was a little bit younger than you guys were, but it's interesting to hear everybody's experiences and where they were at that time. I can even remember even being 3 around the commotion around the time of the modern-day president being assassinated. You wanted to tell your
sure. I was home at that particular time. I was watching television, and I think you were off in nursery school, I think. You know, you being 3, that's where that's where you would have been. And I remember watching it and being so mesmerized and so upset. I couldn't believe that it was happening because I was watching, you know, when the president left Washington and went to Dallas because there was so much commotion about it. That was all on television.
Right.
So, and he was a very popular president. There's no doubt about that. And I remember watching this, you know, the motorcade, and seeing the moment that he was shot. You know, and I was sitting there glued, and I couldn't believe my eyes. I was in shock.
So they were showing it live on TV?
They showed it live,
I
okay?
see.
So, and I saw it, and I just couldn't believe it. So the first person I called was my mother. You know, and I was asking her if she was watching this. It was absolutely unbelievable.
So it was just a live newscast from Dallas.
It was a live newscast.
President Kennedy is visiting Dallas, and the people are waving, and the next thing you know,
that's right.
Somebody's shooting them. Wow.
That's right. And that moment, you know, I just can't get that out of my mind, you know, because it was just so traumatic.
Right.
And then the first thing you saw is, as one person said to who you know was covering this, he was saying that a young black kid said to him, he saw the man who's up there in that window shooting the president. And I remember, you know, people going on about that. Anyway, I don't think I got any sleep. I think, you know, people were so shocked. The news people were shocked. One of them was crying. And I remember that I think it went into that next day, and I actually saw, what was his name? Oswald get shot by Jack Ruby.
That I remember watching on TV. I remember over and over again they were replaying when they were backing up. There was a scene where they were backing up a car. I guess they were bringing Oswald out to put it into another car. And then when Jack Ruby shot him, they kind of lifted him up and put him into the car. And I remember they showed over and over again the car backing up, some commotion, shooting, and you know, being 3 years old, still remembering that image, that time was pretty devastating. What do you think going forward, Dad? Was the impression, you know, about the country?
Yeah,
you know.
Let me, if I may, I mentioned that. Andy Hatcher was a friend of mine and associate press secretary for the president. And I think one of the things to give a perspective of this is that, number one, when John F. Kennedy, first of all, Andy was a friend of Pierre Salinger's. And when Pierre Salinger was brought on to work on, number one, on the campaign for John F. Kennedy,
and he
brought his friend...
Pierre Salinger would have been the press secretary, is that correct?
Pierre Salinger was a newspaper reporter, a writer in California, and so was Andy Hatcher. Andy was a writer out in California. In fact, Andy had worked on Adlai Stevenson's campaign earlier, a couple of years earlier than that. But when Kennedy was finally elected president, one of the things they did between the time he was elected and the time he was sworn in is that Kennedy took the entire campaign staff and people down to Florida for R&R, and they stayed at the Fontainebleau Hotel. Now, at that time, the Fontainebleau Hotel was strictly segregated. It was no blacks were allowed there, no black guests were allowed there, etc. But when the president, John F. Kennedy, was there with his staff, he included Andy Hatcher there. It was the first time that an African American had stayed at that place, and Andy told me that his wife said to Andy, why don't you go in the pool, integrate the pool? And Andy said, I can't swim. I'm not going in that pool. But she insisted that he go in there so that he could make history by being the first African American to ever stay at the Fontainebleau and also to participate in the activities. And JFK supported that. But I think it's important to note also that there's a lot of talk now about civil rights, etc. At the time that when John F. Kennedy was the president, he was not that strong. He was a senator, rather. And he was not that strong for civil rights because he wanted to run for president, and he did not want to alienate the Southerners. But I was active with the NAACP and the Youth Division at that time, and I can recall people talking about this young first congressman and then Senator Kennedy, they were trying to get him to come out and support civil rights. And it was a difficult time. It was difficult to get him to do that. But finally, on June the 12th, 1963, John F. Kennedy made his televised speech about civil rights, and how the country needed to support it. And ironically, that night, Medgar Evers, the civil rights fighter from Mississippi, was assassinated on June the 12th, 1963. So it was an awful lot going on at that time. Someone mentioned that the civil rights movement was moving along, etc. But I think that it's important to note that that there was some involvement with African Americans, and that Kennedy was it was shortly there. The Civil Rights March on Washington had been held in that year, as a matter of fact. And
well, I Have a Dream speech, the March on Washington, took place in '63 as well.
The March on Washington took place in August, I think, August the 23rd or thereabout.
Of 1963.
We just celebrated the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington.
Wow, so a lot of ground,
a
lot of things were happening in that year. That was a pivotal year.
The movement was moving.
Yeah. So a great number of things that was going on then, and so we had, as I mentioned, Andy and other African Americans that were active. Dr. King, of course, made that great speech in August of that year. Medgar Evers had been killed in June, just prior to the March on Washington, and then in June, and then we had the president make his speech in June prior to the March on Washington. So a lot was going on there, and I'm glad that I was active and involved in it at that time as well.
There were a lot of activity with the activists, in New Jersey and New York and the northern area.
Because of civil rights.
Absolutely, absolutely. That was big, and with the...
when he went to Texas, was there some... I remember reading in some history somewhere that from a political standpoint, Texas wasn't as friendly to him, and it was not a good trip. It's going to be one of those quote bumpy, rough trips where presidents often go into territory where thhere they're not polling as well, for lack of a better way of putting it. That was the case going on there.
Yeah, he was going down there to try to mend the fences between the various parts of the Democratic Party. So he was going down there to try to bring them together. And there was animosity. They didn't particularly like John F. Kennedy. As I say, he was a New Englander. He was a rich guy who also had just come out, as I say, in June, talking about the need for civil rights.
Right.
There was a great movement at that time, civil rights. So they were not too happy about him. And let me tell you an aside. If you watch the recent film on the films on the press conference that was held at the hospital, and when they announced that John F. Kennedy was dead, had passed away, had been killed, there was a young fellow was the press secretary that evening. Now, Andy Hatcher, Pierre Salinger was the press secretary, and at that time, members of the Kennedy cabinet were on their way to Japan for a high-level meeting. So Pierre Salinger was traveling with them. He was over the Pacific when Kennedy was shot. All right. Andy Hatcher then was supposed to be the second person in charge. Usually one or the two was always with the president. But Andy told me that since that was it wasn't going to be a very eventful trip, so Andy told me that he did not, although he was supposed to go, he was scheduled to go to Texas, he decided to take that weekend off, and he did not go to Texas, and he told the third guy, the young fellow, the brand new assistant press, to go to Texas. Nothing's going to happen.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's when
I remember that.
Kennedy was killed.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Andy wasn't there, and Andy said he never forgave himself, and that he was not there at that time when he was supposed to be there, but had decided that there was going to be an uneventful trip, and so this young fellow had to take on that most important press conference that ever held in the White House.
Wow. Well, who would have thunk that would have been a reality in modern day America, that someone would or some people would assassinate a president on TV in front of everybody in broad daylight, and so
that was such a turning point. The way of way African American people felt.
Right.
You really felt a part of this. If they could shoot the president, You better get together and do something, and that's when all the factions were starting to work together.
I'm kind of one of those people who don't believe that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, but that's just me. I know that
there's that whole conspiracy
people
thing.
want to wrap things up real nicely, but a lot of things seemed a little bit suspect.
You think there's this
when you look back in history?
Conspiracy?
I don't know.
I don't see how he could have done that all along. He was a defector to Russia.
If we just look at things from a basic, very simple security standpoint, the fact that you have a head of state riding in an open area relatively fast, and there's certain things that people can see in broad daylight that they don't want to see sometimes. So it's just interesting to me. Your thoughts there? I see you trying to jump in.
A number of things happened on that particular trip. For instance, Kennedy, they had a bubble on that car. That could be removed or left on, and he insisted he wanted to see the people. He wanted the people to see him.
Right.
The bubble that was on it was bulletproof, but for some reason that this happened that day. That it was a nice day, and he wanted to get to see the Texan people and wanted them to see him. So he had them take that bubble off because that would have protected him. So there was no protection for him at that time, and so that's one of the number of things that happened that people say, if only so and so had happened, if only something else had happened. But I remember he came to Newark, as a matter of fact. He came to the Newark Armory. There was a big rally during his campaign.
Okay, hold right there. Hold right there, Deb. We got to go to a quick break, but we definitely want to hear this on the other side of this break. We'll be right back on the Kae Thompson Live and GoPro Radio Network.
The views and opinions expressed on GoPro Radio Network shows are solely those of the speakers and are not necessarily the views or opinions of GoPro Radio Networks, Inc. or its affiliates. These broadcasts are provided on the understanding that they do not constitute professional advice or services. Individuals who speak in these broadcasts express their own opinions, experiences, and conclusions. GoPro Radio Networks and its affiliates do not necessarily endorse or oppose any particular opinion or conclusion discussed in these broadcasts. You may not edit, modify, or redistribute these broadcasts in any way without the express permission of GoPro Radio Networks, Inc. GoPro Radio Networks assumes no liability for any of your activities in connection with these broadcasts or for your use of these broadcasts in connection with your website, computer, or playing device.
You want to know the truth, folks? Do you really want to know the truth? Well, perhaps you can't handle the truth. But if you can listen to GoPro Radio. Tune in at www.goproradio.com. Now, have I made myself clear?
GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head. I know I do.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
And we are back, Kae Thompson Live. I'm Kae Thompson, and with my son Eric Payne, and also Bill Payne is on the air. We were talking about the assassination and the trip to Texas and all that happened as a result of it, and then that really kicked off a serious movement among Black Americans. What do you say, Bill?
You were finish your story that you were.
Yeah, I had mentioned that the Kennedys, they had the Hollywood crowd with them, and Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. and all the rest of them, and they had a rally, came to Newark, before during the campaign, the Newark Armory, and I remember being up there with a couple of thousand people up there when they came in. It was a great deal of excitement, but that was the Kennedy era was a very exciting era, as you recall. They did have a lot of people that were from Hollywood, et cetera, there.
Yes.
But the fact that I had this unique relationship with Andy Hatcher, he gave me insight into a lot of things. And he said once, after Johnson took over as president, he said that he had a different style, and what would happen that they would walk through the White House, Andy said, and the door would be closed into the Oval Office, and Andy said each time he walked by there, he said maybe John F. Kennedy is in there, maybe he's sitting at the desk, maybe. He said often they would just just hope and just could not get used to the fact that behind that door there was someone else there, because they were all obviously very loyal to John F. Kennedy. But Andy went on to we had a relationship afterwards after he left the White House, and when he went to work for some large public relations firm, and we often spent time together talking about some of the things, some of the experiences that he had in the White House. He was born Andy Hatcher was born in Princeton, New Jersey, and grew up in Princeton and Red Bank, etc. So he's a
There's
Jersey
not
guy.
there's not much information about Andy. As a matter of fact, I don't remember ever reading that much information about him being in the White House.
Oh yeah. As once in a while you would see, if you're probably too young to remember the press conference they had when Kennedy was around, but Pierre Salinger conducted them. But every once in a while when Pierre wasn't there, Andy was the one that conducted those press conferences, and for the very first time in history, a black guy was in charge of that. So and he and I and my brother I remember he would come once in a while to the NACP conventions. I remember we were in Philadelphia at a convention once, and he spent time with us. He was off from the White House.
Just a little aside. This is why we need the Amistad legislation
Exactly.
to learn about great black people like Andy Hatch that served in John F. Kennedy's administration. When people hear about that era of history, that individual like him should be included in the history books.
And he was not the butler.
And certainly at that time period, that he was an African American that was a part of the president's administration during this civil rights period. So another reason why the Amistad legislation needs to be severely or diligently, let's put it like that, diligently.
We have 5
enforced.
minutes we have 5 minutes to the end. What is the present situation with the Amistad legislation, Bill?
Well,
Give us an update real fast.
It's we still have obviously different towns now who are beginning to teach a version of the Amistad legislation. The unfortunate part about it is that there does not seem to be a clear understanding, or at least those in power don't want to understand it. The Commissioner of Education has not put his weight behind the implementation and the teaching of African American history included in the general social studies. It's not there yet, and I'm fighting. As a matter of fact, I have a meeting scheduled with this governor who was just recently reelected. I spoke to Chris Christie about it, and he is arranging for me to sit down with the Commissioner of Education to finally talk about implementing it across the state. And as a matter of fact, it happens that tomorrow, Arnie Duncan, who is the Commissioner of Education, the United States Secretary of Education, is going to be in Essex County tomorrow. And I'm going to make my business to meet with him, take him some information about Amistad, to take this information back to Washington. I've met with him once about it, and I'm going to take it tomorrow because it's simply not being taken seriously. The governor has promised me that we will sit down and that we're going to do everything we can to make sure it happens.
We have just a couple of minutes. We do have just a couple of minutes, and I want to say this about the Amistad legislation. It is illegal in the state of New Jersey not to teach African American history as part of world history in the state of New Jersey. So what I do, because I have a personal interest in the Amistad legislation, having been, social studies teacher, and working with a number of African American scholars like Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Dr. Rebecca Sedema, et cetera, over my years at WLIB. I'm advocating and I'm encouraging people, if your school district is not teaching African American history, it's a part of world history, sue the State Department of Education because it's illegal. If they don't teach it. Sue the State Department of Education in the state of New Jersey. Okay? And I'm going on record as saying that because it's about time that we are included in the history. It's like we don't exist. How dare they? So get yourselves together and really endorse this. It's extremely important.
Absolutely. Yeah, and every single school district, every single town has a responsibility. Their Board of Education is supposed to be implementing it. And everybody who lives in any town that they can go to the board at meetings and demand that it be taught. They should do that.
Absolutely.
As you say, it is the law of the state of New Jersey. And so we should demand that it be taught. And let me recommend also, everybody should go see that picture, 12 Years a Slave. That gives a very clear picture of how heinous slavery was in this country. I would recommend that everyone go to see that.
You're absolutely right. You have 1 minute.
And get a lesson about
Okay.
how terrible it was back then.
Okay, we will keep people up to date. Eric, we've come to the end of the Dynamite Show. Thanks to Ophelia Thompson out there in Toledo, Ohio. And thanks to Bill Payne with the Amistad legislation. And thanks to you, Eric Payne.
Thank you.
Because
Thank
you were around during that time, even though you were very, very, very
and
young.
Thanks to our sponsors, Vonda's Kitchen, Bogey's Nightclub and Lounge,
Amen.
183 West Kennedy Street, Vonda's Kitchen.
And Ty Washington and the crew.
237 William Street in East Orange.
Yep.
For Ruben's Bogey's Lounge. This has been Kae Thompson. I'm Eric Payne.
And we're going out with a little
What's the
bit
name of your
of
show?
Pancho Sanchez.
What's the name of your show?
I don't know. I forgot.
Kae Thompson
Kae
Live
Thompson Live.
is the name of the show. I hope y'all don't forget it too. On GoPro Radio Network,
Yeah.
Blog
Ty
Talk
Washington,
Radio
Diana.
Network, Jersey City, State of New Jersey,
Metropolitan area.
on the planet Earth.